Planning Board meeting, October 14th, 2020. Apologies for the delayed start. We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Want to grab a seat? Come over here. Okay.
Okay, so
Grab a seat, come over here.
what we're going to do is we've got some stuff as people join the meeting. First thing I'm going to read is, in accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and Governor Baker's March 23, 2020 revised guidance on order by the governing assemblage of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted virtually and provide for remote public attendance to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted, and all effort will be made to permit remote public attendance of this virtual meeting via technological means in the manner specified below. And if available, via public broadcast of the meeting by Malden Access Cable Television on public access television channels. Public access will also be provided by posting draft minutes and or a transcription recording or record of the meeting on the City of Malden website at www.cityofmalden.org as soon as practicable after the meeting. If we could start with Risa, the first hearing we're going to hear tonight is 57 East Border Road. Before we do that, I'd like to remind everyone here in the room, please speak up, talk loud, talk clear, so the microphones can pick up your voice. And also make sure that you try to keep the rustling of papers to a minimum if you can. I know it's difficult with the maps and the different reports and things, but if you could do that, that would be great. Risa, if you could start the roll call, that would help us move on.
Risa Gray, Planning Board.
Tawadaj Gabrasalasi, Planning Board.
Patrick Fitzgerald, Planning Board.
Diane Chuha, Planning Board.
Chuck Iovan, Planning Board.
Michelle Romero, City Planner.
Eric McCush, Planning Board.
Pat Hayes, Planning Board.
Henry Zusi, Planning Board.
Eric Henry, Planning Board.
Okay, terrific. The first hearing we're going to hear is 57 East Border Road. Michelle, can you please read the notice?
The Malden Planning Board will virtually and remotely hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020, on the petition of Gina and Anthony Spadafora seeking a special permit under section 12.28.130 of chapter 12 revised ordinances of 2020 in the city of Malden for ledge removal and alteration of grade to prepare the property to construct a garage addition to the existing single-family dwelling at the property known as and numbered 57 East Border Road, Malden, Mass, and also known by City Assessor's Parcel ID 006020043. This is under permit RES 029284-2019.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Is the petitioner on the Zoom call?
Anthony and Gina Spadafora.
Anthony and Gina Spadafora.
Would you like to unmute them?
Yes.
Okay, before we start, I'd like to make a note that Risa Gray will not be participating on this hearing. Thank you. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Spadafora, if you can go through what you're looking to do and describe it and let us know what you're petitioning for, starting off with your name and address for the record.
I'm going to defer to my contractor, Butch Fonzie, and I think he has someone with him to assist in that.
Very good.
This Butch Fonzie. We'll be speaking for Gina and Anthony Spadafora. I also have Thad Berry, the engineer, on the line with us, not on video. At this time, if you could, what we're looking to do is on the right side of the driveway of the new addition, the roadway will go up, which will have to remove the ledge on the right side, and inside the garage that's going to be constructed on the right side of the house. So all that activity will be on the right side of the house, right, and on the right side of the new garage going in. The ledge removal will take place in such a fashion with a hydraulic hammer and an excavator removing the rock into a dump truck, which will take it away. We'll have to get down to an elevation to accept the footing and the new foundation, which will be alongside the existing house. The other part will be a minimal taking of ledge on the right side driveway so that we can come up and go park out back of the existing, where the parking is existing now. Instead of the driveway being on the left, it'll be on the right going around the new garage. Any questions?
Yes, how long do you think this will take? I read in the report it's 160 cubic feet of removal.
Correct? 160 yards of material, correct?
Yes, and how long will it take you to excavate 160 yards of material?
Well, the side yard, I think it's a minimal till you get to the driveway, and then we have to cut into to excavate for the rock for the new addition. So the time will be excavate, and then our next step would be to hammer the rock that's there, get down to the footing. Do we have a time frame on it? We'd like to, get in at least 2 months. It's going to take us to get the footing and foundation on. Is that what you're looking for, or the amount of time we're going to be actually hammering?
Well, both. So it's 2
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, it's gonna take us 2 months, because once we dig it and put that foundation in, we might have a high spot or not. So now we're coming into the winter, so just as much as we can get in the ground right away, and then do our backfill. I don't see the rock taking us a long time, because of it's all fractured and rotten up top. It's got a lot of cracks in it. It's the areas that we can't see, that we don't really know. So it's unknown on what we can't see. But doing this long enough, I'd like to get in and out of there with the foundation in the ground in a 2-month period.
Okay. Looking at the plan, is there an expectation to park in front of the new proposed addition?
Say that again?
Looking at the plan that you submitted,
Correct.
I see NDS catch basin number 1 and proposed wall, where those words are written. Do you plan on parking in that area, or will everything go up the driveway and then you'll park either to the right or to the left and in the garage?
Is that after the completion or during?
After.
After. So after, you're going to have, I think, 2 or 3 spaces inside the garage, and the drive that's going up the right and out to the back is to service and just to bring up like always, bring the groceries up, and like a day-to-day thing. That's why we have the driveway going to the right. Becomes less impact to come up that way instead of coming up a steep driveway on the left. So that's why we're doing the garage, and we're going to keep the driveway. We'll be parking behind the new foundation. Correct. If that was, did I answer your question?
I didn't see anywhere on the map where the door to the new garage was gonna be.
The new garage is on the street view. It's on the street. So there's 2 doors that are right into the street. You're gonna drive directly in from the street.
Okay, so you will come in from the East Border Road and drive, you could drive right into the garage.
Correct, you'll drive directly in.
And the backside will be closed.
And the what?
The back side of the garage will be closed.
The door will be closed?
No, that's correct. The back will be
Will
closed.
there
Garage.
be a door or will there be a wall?
There'll be a wall at the back of the garage, correct?
You won't be able to go through the garage up to the area behind the garage.
I'm not following you at all.
Correct, yes. So it's one entrance into the garage. The back will be a wall. Correct.
Yeah, okay, I got it, yeah. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Now, the driveway, that won't impact the rain garden at all, will it?
The garage itself?
The proposed driveway that's 12 feet wide, that's gonna go up along the side of the garage and up into that back area.
Correct.
Will that impact the rain garden at all?
No,
Okay. What size trucks will you be using to remove the excavation?
they're gonna be a 10-wheel dump and a triaxle dump.
And what size are those?
Is it a 10-wheeler dump? So the size body on that is like,
Not like a five cubic yard, cubic foot?
oh yeah, so the 10-wheel is a 15 cubic, 15 to 16, and the other one's 18.
Okay, no, that's what I was looking at.
Okay.
Now, on the staging, how are you planning on staging the equipment that you're gonna use to excavate?
Well, we're gonna bring it in by 20-ton trailer. We drop it off and walk it up the driveway.
Are you gonna park them on East Border Road? Or
No.
parking them on the lot during construction?
There's no road construction at all. Everything's on the lot. All construction will be on the lot, including the trucking. We have areas to pull off already. It's already ready for construction. There's gravel there to stop the impact of any dirt, any runoff.
When I was up there over the weekend, there was some outcropping that was painted. There appeared to be fluorescent orange lines painted. How much of that will you plan on taking down?
I don't remember the lines being there.
Okay, how much of the outcropping on the right side of the lot are you taking down? Are you just taking it down to be flat so you can put the driveway over it? Or are
Yeah.
you-
Yes, so let's go over that. So the right side will be at the same pitch as the driveway coming up. So it's not like we're not going deep with that cut. It's not a deep cut. So if you were up there and you've seen the driveway on the left, existing asphalt, if you carry that plane across, you're gonna be on the right side, almost exactly the same as the left side. We're just making that flip. We're gonna have on that
Are you
side.
going down any further than you absolutely have to?
Correct. Yeah, we're gonna have to do like 6 inches to a foot below the asphalt so that we can pave it. Gravel, 6 inches of gravel, 3 inches of paving.
Okay. The last thing I'd like to ask about, and maybe the engineer could speak to it, if he could describe this rain garden and what you're gonna need to do for excavation to install it and maintain it.
When you're dealing with sites like this where you have lead, obviously.
Sir, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Thad Berry. Address is 18 Oak Street, Reading, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
As I was saying earlier, when you're dealing with sites like this where you have ledge, obviously it's difficult to do really good infiltrations. But the best way to deal with these types of sites is to use these low impact design rain gardens, which basically they're intended to trap water, disperse it through the whole rain garden, and allow it to slowly infiltrate into pond. And again, the infiltration would be somewhat limited, obviously, because of the ledge, but you still have the ability to pond it, trap it, and so forth. The rain gardens themselves, they're really, once they're built, they're just a landscape feature that require mowing of the grass around them, obviously weeding the flower bed, which is really what it is. Occasionally, you may want to update the pine bark mulch or stone, whatever you want to dress up the top with. But they're really intended not to really take a lot of maintenance, especially when they're this small. They're really intended to try to capture, trap, and infiltrate the storm water that's flowing to them.
Okay, so there'll be minimal maintenance required.
It's more or less, if you look at the picture that we show, it's more or less maintaining a planting bed. And obviously, if there's grass around it, mowing the grass is a typical. It's nothing that's onerous on the homeowner. That's why the stormwater regulations for Mass try to promote the use of these type of things because they work great, one, and they're easy to maintain.
Could you,
Hold on 1 second, Chairman. The board, I did not realize, did not have the plans and information in front of them. That was a oversight. So let me just give this out, please.
While Michelle's handing that out, I did want to just mention maybe, Mr. Berry, if you could start thinking about this with regard to the vibration levels associated with the chipping that's going to be involved. I read in there that was 0.3 inches per second. But what I really couldn't get a sense of from the table on the last page was what that really means. Could you explain what that means for 57 East Border Road and 47 East Border Road?
Well, it's basically trying to communicate that the hammer itself and the operation of, obviously running the hammer, the vibration really isn't going to travel or impact the abutting property. It's really going to be very localized to where he's actually doing the work at any given time.
Okay, so it should dissipate before it reaches either of the houses.
Yes.
And those two being the
Because
closest.
what happens is, and Bush can speak to this, what happens is that obviously the hammer itself is basically working, and I'm sure you've seen it, they're working it's in a very small area. And once and again, like with fractured rock, it may not even create that much of any type of vibration. It would just chip it off. If you got into harder rock, again, it's still going to be functioning in a very small area until a rock pops off. So it's not like if something's happening where he's going to all of a sudden take off a 6-foot diameter rock. It's just not going to happen that way with the hammer.
Right. It's very similar to chipping a piece of ice. It's almost like identical. It doesn't travel. It just chips what it has to chip where you hit it. It doesn't have something that'll actually travel. There's a cushion inside these hammers that run a gas that actually takes a lot of the cushion. And that's what keeps that hammer chipping. They're chipping. It's not a hammer. Everybody calls it a hammer. It's a chipping gun. It's a giant chipping gun. It chips. It doesn't send out vibration because it's on that very point. It's only a 4-inch diameter point with a chisel on the end of it. So you're chiseling off those pieces. And if it doesn't work, then you move it to you move it a foot over, or 6 inches over. It's meant to chip. It's not meant to vibrate like everybody thinks.
Okay, so
And again, the idea about it is that you're working in small. Each time he's moving the machine, he's working in a very, very small area. That's why in this particular case, it's practical because it's a small amount of ledge. Obviously, if you're doing a big site, doing that type of operation isn't cost effective.
that's all the questions I had at the moment. Does anyone else have any questions for the petitioner's representatives? Yeah, I think. Michelle, you have a question?
Yes, I had a couple questions. So if you can get back to the actual ledge removal. So is 160 cubic yards the measurement of all materials being removed or just ledge and rock being removed?
It's the ledge and the rock and the material that has to come out. We need some for backfill. So if you took a 30 by 30 area that the garage is going in, that's a couple test holes there. It looks pretty good. So that has to be, removed in order to get the foundation in. And then we need to stockpile some there until we backfill the wall once it goes up. So we can even it off. We'll probably bring in a clean fill. So that area there has to come out. So if you did 30 by 30, let's see, we'll give it a quick measurement here of just so we have basically maybe another 100 yards of material that have to get out because of the excavation of the garage area. And where it's at a slope, it becomes less than that.
That's just soil and dirt. It's not chipping. It's not ledge that's been chipped.
No, there's a lot of fill that's there that's going. It's not like it's all ledge. It's not all ledge, but we don't know that because we never got the test hole where we wanted the test hole. We have to go through this process to get to the next process.
What's the 160 based on then?
Based on the ledge that we think it's right there, that we need to go hammer out inside in the driveway and the foundation itself.
Okay, so Tad Berry, you looked at the type of soil and the type of rock and ledge, and you calculated that based on the complex and the slopes and it's all description in geological terms. This is the geotech survey. You determined that it's approximately 160 cubic yards of ledge. Is that correct?
Yeah, approximately, yeah.
Okay. All right, so if it's 160 and the trucks take about 15 to 16, so you expect it to be about 10 truckloads, is that correct?
Yes and no, because once we take that ledge out of the ground, then it becomes voids in it. You probably can get another third on that or almost double the size because of the voids. It's not as tight as what you measure on the ground on a flat surface. Once it's broken up, that expands. So you could actually say it could be up to 20 truckloads going out. And it's not going to be all in one day,
Okay.
right? Because you're only going to make maybe 2 or 3 loads a day. It's a slow process. It's not like you just dig it all up at once. It's a slow process till you get to that point. So if you're there for, a week and a half of hammering, and as you're doing it, you can load it and clean it up. You got to keep the site clean so you can see what you're doing also. So it just doesn't,
Thank you.
it's a slow process to do it correctly and safely, the way it goes.
3 per day, 2 to 3 truckloads per day. So how long do you think the ledge removal part of the project's gonna take? We typically get an estimate like 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 18 weeks. There's usually a sense based on the amount and what's gonna happen. So about how long do you think the ledge removal, so that we can know how long the machinery is going to be active and working at the site for the ledge removal only?
Well, if we take just that right side, and the unknown is what's under the ground there that we don't know. But the right side, you figure we'll be in there for 2 days. The left side, if we get it good to go, you're going to be in there for a week and a half. Okay, so total, you're going to hear the hammer for about 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you start on the
And
left?
you know what? And don't hold me that, because it's all unknown till we open the ground.
Right, but it's an estimate.
What's that?
It's an estimate, an educated estimate.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you. So are you gonna start on the garage side or the other side?
So we need to start on the driveway side to clean that up, so that when we're working on the garage side, that they still can come up and park up top. So we want to get the driveway in and that side done and clean so that we can use it still to get up top. Then we could start the garage side, and we got to fence it off and put some barrier up there so no one goes in the hole and make it safe. And that's how that's going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
One other question I just had. There used to be a garage that was removed.
Correct.
Now, that's shown on this aerial plan. You can still see the garage, because this is from 2018. Was that a 2-car garage?
Where is it? That was removed?
It was behind the house.
It's a 2-car garage that was removed.
Why was that removed?
Because you couldn't get in it, because the doors actually face the house itself.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was before the other addition. There's 2 additions that happened there. I think back maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Gina, about maybe 10 years ago, we put the addition on the back.
Yeah, but prior to that, so at some point there was a patio added there too, and there was the swing really was barely impossible for that garage, especially with the hill, to be effective. So that garage had never been used probably even before we bought the house.
And that's gone.
Cars for storage, more for storage.
Okay, thank you. And that's gone anyway. So now there's an addition on the back of the house that's shown on the other plan. You can see it's called concrete slab. Is that where the addition is? On the topographic plan? Or floor? Floor, is that where the new addition is?
New addition is out back, correct?
So is it on what's called concrete slab, or is it on what's called floor?
No, that's a concrete slab that's there.
That's just an open slab.
Yes, correct.
And then I just had a couple quick questions, if I could, for the engineer. Could you just explain this two seems to be, I guess it's one system that has different parts. So there's the rain garden, but then there's also this underground system. Is that connected to the rain garden, or how does that work?
Well, with the rain garden, or with rain gardens in general, you put in the small NDS catch basins, and again, just to possibly trap any sediment that comes off the driveway. A driveway would have very little, if any, sediment. And then that, once it gets into the NDS catch basin, it will just basically flow through a perforated pipe into stone below. It just helps get that water into the below grade quicker, and not create a ponding situation right away. So it's just a way of distributing, making sure you're distributing the water evenly over the bottom of the pond, of the rain garden.
Okay, so when you're out in the yard, like if you're walking in that area, you'll see what looks like a flower bed, but then you'll also see this up in the top corner, it looks like a green dome. Will you see those out in the yard? Like, are those visible, those things?
No, you mean no, you won't see, when the rain garden is completed, if you were walking the street or something, you would see a landscape bed. And you wouldn't, obviously you'd see the plants, the flowers and so forth, but you wouldn't see any structures. It would just look like a landscape bed.
Okay, and that's this bottom diagram, so there's mulch and stuff over it. But then this top thing that looks like a green dome, it says NDS square polyolefin grade. Do you see that?
Yeah, yes, it's a very small, those are the NDS are very small catch basin grade, and it's just basically a dome, very small. Again, you won't, I have a hard time believing you're going to be able to pick it out in the rain garden with the plants. But all it is, it just helps the homeowner long term to maintain it, because it has less possibility to clog with leaves and debris. That's all. It's just I think it's a better way of putting a catch basin top on one of these catch basins. But again, the height of it versus the plants is going to be, you'd have to be right there to see it.
So are these both connected though to the same underground system, this PVC pipe? Are they connected or they're two separate systems?
Say that again?
Is the rain garden system connected to the catch basin system, or are they two different?
The infiltration system, or the stone, is basically at the base, right below the rain garden. The idea is that the water trapped provides, it's kind of providing water for the plants, treatment, infiltration, and trapping of the water to minimize the amount of flow going off site.
Okay, so they're connected together underground?
The two rain gardens, they function separately.
Right, but is the rain garden something, the catch basin?
Yeah, they function separately. There are two rain gardens that are not connected. They function separately, mostly due to the elevation change.
Right, I see that, but are they connected to the catch basins? Is this
What's
one?
connected to the catch basin is the perforated pipe that distributes the water into the stone below.
Okay, that's good enough. My last question is just, is this required for you to do this? Because of the amount of new pavement you're putting, is this required that you do this?
Say that again?
It's required that you put in this system?
Well, there's a slight, anytime, when I ran the 100-year storm, we got a very small increase, 0.21 cubic feet per second. That's extremely, extremely small, but it is an increase, but it's extremely small. In many ways, it's, you can't do hydrology studies to the accuracy of 0.21, but there is more pavement, there is more roof, and all this does is allow a homeowner a way of managing that increase in a cost-effective way, in an aesthetic way, in an easy way to maintain, plus the benefit of having the landscape feature there when you're done.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you want
Mr. McCush?
with the completion of the construction, how much of the property percentage-wise will now be paved over or cemented over
Right now,
after construction?
after
the drive,
construction, probably about the same exact area. Right now, it's all ledge. And, the area that is ledge, and the paved area on the left side is going to be on the right side. And the paved area that's near right now where the garage is going to be, there's going to be paved area in front of the garage also. So we're going to be taking away the paved area where the garage is. And that's going to be about the same amount of paving going back down. So if you took a square footage of paved area right now, that's about the exact same what you're going to end up, pretty damn close to what you're going to end up with.
Any other questions? Eric Henry?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the hydrologic soil group. This is figure 2, Middlesex County, Massachusetts, referring to page 4 of 4, where it lists several rating options. This is more of a point of information. Could you explain what these rating options are and specifically what the tie break rule higher is?
I'm not exactly sure I understood the question.
Yeah.
I'll try again. I'm referring to figure 2 of the hydrologic soil group, Middlesex County, page 4 of 4. And it discusses rating options. And my
So
question
you want to have an understanding of the hydrologic soil grouping?
I want to have an understanding of what these rating options are on page 4 of 4, and specifically what this tie break rule is and what that means.
But this tie,
Are you with me on page 4 of 4?
so I'm getting to.
This is in the September 1st, 2020 letter from ASB Design Group. It's the attachment. Figure 2.
For a sec.
page 3 or 4 that breaks down the groups.
3 or 4, Eric?
Yeah, but it doesn't refer to the tie break rule.
No.
You're looking for.
No.
So on page 4, on the last page where it says rating options,
Absolutely.
is that what you're asking about?
Yes, sir.
It just goes back to when you go to page 3, they have some descriptions, and there are basically 4 types of soil groups, A, B, C, and D. And, there are cases where you have, they can't clarify it totally as an A soil or totally as a B soil. So you do have the ability to call it an AD soil, BD soil. It just gives you different, abilities to rate a soil. That's all.
Yes, sir. I grasp that. So given that knowledge you just shared, what does it mean tie break rule higher?
Well, it would be if the most conservative, if I were doing a drainage study, okay, and it was a D soil, all right, I would use the higher A soil, because that would give me the biggest increase between pre and post development. It would be the most conservative way to do a pre and post drainage study. Because an A soil under existing conditions is able to absorb a lot more water into the soil than, say, a D soil. So if I'm comparing pre and post and I wanted to make it easy on myself, I can say, okay, it's a D soil. Not that much water runs into the ground, so when I compare pre and post, I have a smaller number.
So if you had to, if it was a tie break, you would go with A in this case or D?
Exactly. But in this particular case, the number itself, like I said before, is so small. Like I said, it's 0.21 cubic feet per second. It's just a really hard number even to visualize. And I want to point out, when I talk about 0.21 cubic feet per second, that occurs at the peak of the storm, at the 12th hour of the storm approximately, and probably lasts less than 60 seconds. And then on either side of that, it's practically zero. So it's the HydroCAD or the hydrology related to something like this is extremely, extremely conservative.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're anticipating a rating of A soil, a group A?
I just basically what I did is I took a CN value of 98. It's a 98 is basically impervious. So it doesn't matter what the soil is below, because I'm saying if it's 98, 98 is pavement. In other words, only 2% stormwater runoff that hits pavement technically doesn't flow off the site. You can call it evaporation or whatever, but it's a very small amount that doesn't flow off. So I just ran the number is 98% of the water runs off the site. So it doesn't matter what the soil is, because I'm just calling it impervious.
Do you have a tie break situation here, sir?
No.
Thank you.
You all set, Eric?
I believe so.
Okay, is there anyone else that has a question for the petitioner? Reese, you're not participating in this.
Can I ask a question? Oh, okay. Thought I could.
Is there anyone else? No one else? Michelle, do you have anything else?
No, not right now, no.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to add to the presentation, sirs? Mr. Fonzie or Mr. Berry, was there anything else that you'd like to add?
Dad, you want to add anything?
No.
No to me also.
Would Mr. or Mrs. Spatafora care to add anything?
We'd like to start, one thing we'd like to start as soon as possible if we could. If we get in favor, that would be nice.
So if no one has anything more to add? Yes, what's that, Michelle?
No.
Yes. Yes. Like she would, at the time, she could ask that on the fire, yes.
Should I tell
We'll cover that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so if you've got nothing left to add to the presentation, then the next portion of the hearing we'll move to is all those that would like to speak in favor of the petition. Anyone who would like to speak in favor? Risa, if you would like to participate or ask a question that you were going to as an abutter, you can ask in the in favor or in the opposition portion. Okay, so let us know which one that you want to do.
I'm gonna hold my question.
Excuse me?
I'm gonna hold my question.
Very good. Okay, so what am I seeing here, Ron?
So I'll actually take over from here. We do have several folks that have indicated that they would like to participate, but they've done so by asking their question in the chat, which is not the correct way to do it. So I'll announce the correct way to do it. If you are interested now, you're taking in favors right now?
Yes, in favor.
Okay, so if you are interested in speaking in favor, I would ask you to use the Q&A feature to indicate your name and your address for the record, along with the words in favor, so that we know to light up your microphone for this particular section. So again, there were several people that had asked questions in the Q&A, but we're not able to respond to those because they weren't asked in the appropriate way. We're also looking as well for folks at this time that are indicating that they want to speak in favor by a raised hand. We'll also take those as well. So again, I see two folks that have already pre-raised their hand before the discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and allow them to speak, and we'll see if they're in the correct, four at this moment.
Very good. Thank you, Ron.
Yep. All right. So
And just a reminder to those that are weighing in, whether it be in favor or in opposition, please start off with your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Okay, so our first person, just by contextually looking, it looks like they're probably on the against, but I'm gonna just, out of an abundance of caution here, Mr. Charles Glazer, I'm going to go ahead and liven up your microphone. And again, this is the section of the hearing where those speaking in favor. So go ahead, Mr. Glazer.
Can you hear me?
So we just ask you that if you are dialed in using two different systems, it sounds like you have a feedback loop there. So if you could please mute your additional system, perhaps you're listening into two devices. So we're going to do this one more time. Go ahead. Yes. So we're going to come back to him because you have a technical issue with your microphone. So we're going to move on to the next person that I see in line. And the name indicated is only just Oli. So as I liven up this microphone, again, please, first and last name and home address for the record, and whether or not you're speaking in favor of this project. So go ahead, Oli. Okay, well, we'll give them a minute. All right, next indicated is Counselor Amanda Linehan. Go ahead, Counselor.
Great. Can you hear me all right?
You can.
Okay, fabulous. So I was hoping to let abutters, have an opportunity to speak first, but fortunately I've had the opportunity to talk to quite a few neighbors over the past few days. I'm definitely inclined to be supportive of this proposal. I think, everybody's sort of looking to improve their home these days. I think we're all stuck working at home, realizing some of the things that we'd like to do to improve our home and our yard. And I think, the Spadafores have a beautiful property, and I can understand why these improvements would certainly improve their quality of life. I guess the concerns that I've heard from neighbors, and again, I am speaking in favor, but just want to elevate some of the things that neighbors have shared with me. I'd very much like to see the work hours as laid out be respected, again, as we're all working from home, and I have a 7-year-old that's learning from home, so I can, speak to what it's like to have construction going on around your property when you're trying to do the remote learning. It's very challenging. I think the hours that have been laid out are pretty sensible. But I would like to make sure that those are respected, and if possible, that, the trucks and the deliveries, if those could come around the same time as the start day, I don't want to see things coming and getting a lot of calls of folks, complaining about deliveries or trucks arriving on site an hour or 2 hours before the work begins. So I think that, again, this sounds like a very reasonable project. Some of the concerns that have been shared with me are really just centered on the noise and the impacts to the surrounding community. So I hope that we can get some of the abutters in to speak to some of the things that they'd like to see happen just in terms of while the project is going along. But I am overall supportive of this and want to thank the petitioners for doing the outreach to the community that they've done. And I'm happy to take questions from neighbors if they do come up as the project proceeds. Thank you.
Council Linehan, you refer to hours of operation. The only ones I saw were referring to the chipping of 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. Is that
So,
what you're?
Yes. Am I understanding that incorrectly, that those are not the hours of the on-site work, that's just the chipping hours?
I believe that's just the chipping, Michelle.
Yeah, that's just a recommendation that I would be making to the board. So it would be any ledge removal and any construction equipment operated for ledge removal or site grading preparation. This is a recommendation for the board's consideration. It wasn't proposed by the petitioner. It's something I'm recommending. But so those are the hours you're saying you're in support of those, but also considering adding all trucks and deliveries during the same hours?
Yeah, and I recognize that may not be strictly possible. Thank you for clarifying that. I guess one of the concerns that was brought to me by a few neighbors was, the city has the kind of the noise ordinance, and it seems like the proposal that you've made fits well within that. But there's a concern about trucks and deliveries and loud noises that aren't necessarily related to chipping, but are more associated with deliveries, and having that start at 6, 7 in the morning. That's kind of what people have relayed to me as a concern.
Okay, so those are like the construction trucks in delivery.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then if I can, the only other thing I would add is that a few folks who live very close to the property have expressed concern to me about vibration or affecting kind of their foundations or their ledge, since there is a lot of ledge in the area. I know some of those folks had planned to be on, so I'm sure they can put a little bit better into words what they're hoping to have happen, or at least to be assured that there won't be damage to their properties. So that I think they were hoping to speak for themselves, but that is something that I had conversations about with several abutters today.
Very good. Is that it?
Yeah, I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have Charles back again, who's indicated he'd like to speak. Just really quick before we go ahead, I forgot to mention that those who are dialed in by phone only can also indicate they would like to speak by hitting *9 on your phone, which will raise your hand and it will acknowledge you by phone number. So we are going to go ahead to Charles, and also too, Charles indicated that he had questions. So just for clarification, this is not a question and answer, but rather a comment. So we just wanted to say that first, Charles, before we liven up your mic. One moment. So go right ahead. Let's hope that mic issues are all set. So I'm glad you are now free to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I gather you do not want to entertain my questions.
Mr. Glazer, could you please name and address for the record, please?
Sorry about that. Charles Glazer, 62 East Border Road, Malden, Mass. 02148.
Thank you.
Am I correct you don't want to entertain questions?
Well, what this is this is the portion of the hearing where you speak in favor of the petition.
Okay. Well, fundamentally, I'm in favor very much of what Gina and Anthony want to do because they have a beautiful property and they want to make it nicer. As a property owner immediately across the street, I have a number of concerns, some of which I intended to address as questions, some of which I intended to address as concerns. If you don't want questions, I can rephrase them all as concerns. So I'm happy to do that. So my first concern, which I intended to address as a question, was whether or not ledge removal actually is required by the city. You know, we all have these beautiful homes, some of which are close to 100 years old in this neighborhood, built on ledge. And I wonder whether or not one could build a garage on top of ledge rather than simply remove the ledge. And I wonder, given that one has to request a special permit for ledge removal, if one could request any sort of variance from any sort of requirement for ledge removal in order to construct an edifice on top of ledge rather than remove ledge. So that would be my first concern. It was actually a question, but I'm rephrasing it as a concern because you don't care for questions.
Mr. Glazer, it's not that we don't care for questions. The position is that we are in the that are in favor of the petition.
All right, well, that's fine. I'm very much in favor. I just don't know quite how else to gather the information I'm interested in without asking questions. And so I'm a little confused. And I actually covered this with both Michelle and Amanda, because I don't want to dispute. I just want to keep us safe and keep the property safe and not be incredibly disturbed by what's going on. So let me continue, and you can address my concerns when you're ready. Okay, so
you've already spoken to Michelle Romero and Council Linehan.
Absolutely, yes, I have. And let me just mention that, by the way, I've been the property owner here since 1994. And I'm familiar, I have some familiarity with ledge removal because about a year after I bought the property, the property behind me was purchased, and the developer spent about 9 months removing ledge and ended up producing what became 137, 131, and 127 Woodland Road. So I'm well aware of what's involved with ledge removal. And in fact, we lived through the ledge removal, whatever ledge removal Gina and Anthony had to do for the pool construction. So I'm speaking from some level of experience here, and I have some concerns that I'm just trying to voice. So excuse me if some of them are questions and some other concerns, okay? I'm curious. I gather, based on Michelle's questioning and the builder's responses, I gather they're looking at a couple of months worth of removal. There was some conflict about that, whether it was days or months. I'm confused about that, but I would like to know what the date, the calendar date is when the proposed start is of the construction. And I'd also like to know if the construction company is going to be the same construction company that did the ledge removal for the pool. And I'd like to know if the permit, if the city issues a permit, does it require any additional liability insurance? And if so, what are the limits of the policy for each occurrence? So if my living room cracks in half, what are the limits of the policy? I gather they've already addressed how many days it would require to remove 160 cubic yards of bedrock. It sounds like actually a couple of months. And let's see. How many vehicles during construction? Where will they park? I gather that was addressed, that they're all going to be parked on the property. So those were my questions, which I hope I've addressed as concerns. But let me basically encapsulate my most acute concerns. Okay. And by the way, I gather that, we're here tonight discussing this as a group, and we didn't get a chance to discuss as a group when the ledge was removed for the pool. So that makes my concerns rather acute when it comes to the ledge removal for the driveway and the garage. And why do I say that? Well, because I'm about the same distance. I've looked at the plan, and I'm about the same distance from where the garage will be as I am from where 137 Woodland Road is, which I lived through. And I remember the banging and the vibrating of my house. So I'm acutely concerned about how the builder will address this. And I gather that the engineer has issued some opinions relative to the whole Caltrans standard on this, and that they're saying, well, they shouldn't exceed 0.3 inches per second on the vibrations, which sounds good, but I'm not really willing to rely on the memo, and I want to know that what actually occurs will not exceed those thresholds. And I'd like to know what will happen if what occurs does exceed those thresholds. So I have some big concerns encapsulated as, first of all, what might be any kind of sort of damage to my property. And that includes not just my building, but the property in its total, which includes some ledge. I don't want my ledge damaged. My ledge actually was damaged when 137 Woodland Road was built. And I gather the ordinances have evolved somewhat since then. But I'm familiar with what happens when you operate a hydraulic hammer. Okay, so I don't want any damage to the property. My most acute concern, and I think, Gene and Anthony can be sensitive to this, is that I don't want us to be disturbed. We're working at home now, and even before we were working at home, I just don't want us to be disturbed. So I gather that the ordinance permits builders to do this sort of work between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m., 6 days a week. And I'd like to know that nothing will happen before 9 a.m. and nothing whatsoever will happen on the weekends. So that's a very key concern for us. We just don't want to be disturbed by the building. I'd also like some assurance that there will be a survey of our property prior to and subsequent to the construction. There will be a video prior to and subsequent to the construction. And I'm also very curious to know whether or not the board would be willing to make a provision on the permit to require the builder to deploy some sensors to ensure that the hammer does not exceed the 0.3 inches per second. Okay, so I gather that Caltrans says 0.3 inches per second is the threshold. I suppose I'm willing to accept that because I'm not an engineer. I'm just a publishing guy who publishes engineering stuff. But I'm not willing to accept that the person operating the hammer will not exceed the 0.3 inches per second. And I'm very interested to know if we can deploy some sensors. And I'm farther away from the action than Gene and Anthony are. I mean, they're the ones that they're going to be the most acutely affected. So it'd be nice to assume that everything will be fine, but I'm not really willing to assume that because I'm across the street and I just don't want any damage. So let's see. I've got no trucks, by the way. When I say no action before 9 o'clock, I mean, I don't even want the flatbeds to arrive before 9 o'clock because I've been through this. Okay. The giant flatbed arrives, it pulls up East Border Road, which is otherwise a very quiet street, and beep, 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 and then it flips down the massive steel things so the tank track thing can roll down, and they get up into the property, and it all happens so that they can start work when they need to start. And I'm sensitive to that because, there's only so many hours of daylight. But sorry, I don't want any of that to happen before 9 a.m. I've got a survey of video sensors. Oh, and my last question, sorry, it's a question, not a concern, but it's a concern and a question. What will be my recourse if the city issues a permit with some provisions such as you shouldn't start before 9 a.m., you shouldn't exceed 0.3 inches per second, you should deploy sensors to ensure that, you should collect the data which we should all be able to audit to ensure that you haven't exceeded 0.3 inches per second? What will be my recourse if any of that is violated? Okay, so the most acute thing is the noise. And the last thing, right, contingencies. What if things don't go as planned when you start hammering away? What do you do then? Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much. I didn't mean to be difficult because in fact, fundamentally, I totally support it. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful when it's finished. I just want it to all work out well for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle, do you want to address some of these, and then we can
Sure.
loop in afterwards if there's anything that we haven't addressed?
So, I'm just gonna go in order. Any special permit that's granted shall be subject to the following conditions. So this is written in the city zoning ordinance, so this is automatically required. Any special permit that's granted for any ledge removal anywhere in the city, unless the petitioner obtains variances of them, they did not pursue variances. So they are before you. In any of these conditions, all of these conditions will be placed on any permit if the board grants a permit. So the first one has to do with seismographs, which are types of sensors. Seismographs shall be located on the site at all times and placed at such distances as determined by the geotechnical professional engineer, with a copy of all tapes to be submitted on a daily basis to the fire marshal. So that's an automatic condition. This board can add to that condition, and I am recommending that you add to that to also place seismograph on the two abutting properties, directly abutting to the east. At this time, recommending also on the property lines with 47 East Border Road and 61 East Border Road. That would be something I recommend for you to consider. So if you grant a special permit, automatically that condition regarding seismographs being placed on site and the fire marshal reviewing them daily, that's automatic. Again, you can add to it. So that addressed that regarding sensors. If you want to require seismographs to be placed anywhere else, you would need to do that as part of the condition. Again, I'm recommending those two sites, two abutting properties, 47 and 61 at this time. Another condition that's required automatically is liability insurance of a minimum of $100,000/300,000 with the city of Malden named as a loss payee. So that's the insurance that they need to provide. That's the minimum insurance. They'll need to submit a copy of their insurance policy to the building commissioner. I don't have the specific information about individual policies and things like that. We'd have to look into that. I don't know what that answer to that question is. In terms of the other question or comment that came up about notice, what is the date of the start? So the date of the start, now I heard date of start of construction, but I'm going to talk about date of start of ledge removal. So the ordinance requires for any special permit granted, you will be subject to a condition that says written notice will be delivered to all premises within 300 feet of the property lines of the subject property, indicating the date or dates such activity will be conducted and the hours of beginning and ending daily for the same. So this is specifically for the ledge removal. The recommended condition is actually that it be changed to 500 feet so that it mirrors the notice requirement. Everybody within 500 feet is notified per ordinance this needs to be updated. It says 300, but it's within the board's discretion to update that to 500, and I would recommend that. That again is when ledge removal. So the petitioner, if the permit's granted, will submit a letter, and it will be mailed out to everybody that got the notice of this hearing that says on these dates during these times is when the ledge removal will occur. They may have to repeat that, they may have to update that, depends on how the work is progressing. I also recommend, and will recommend for the board, that the city be given a copy of that letter. So we'll have a copy on file, so if anybody calls, we'll know, yes, ledge removal is supposed to be at this time. In terms of starting construction, I'll just briefly say, construction is pursuant to a building permit. So once the building permit's issued, it can start. You would need to look that up online on the city website using the same permit number that was in the notice to see when the permit was issued. So that's the only, there's no other notice other than you looking into it. But the notice for ledge removal has to be mailed. I'm sorry, delivered. It doesn't actually have to be mailed. It has to be delivered, so it could be hand delivered. The other thing had to do with survey in video. Another required condition is that pre-ledge removal survey of all buildings within 300 feet of the property lines of the subject property. Again, I would recommend that be 500. We also recommend, as we have in previous permits, that it's a pre-ledge removal video and photographic survey of all buildings within 500 feet of the property lines of the property which consent. So they're going to offer it to everybody. The person has an option to consent. Provide the survey to the property owner, and before ledge removal begins, provide the city with a list of all properties surveyed and contacted. So what will happen is we will give the petitioner or his company the list of all the 500 properties. They will need to send, and it's typically they usually use one of their, could be this GZA company or it might be the contractor, sends out an official form letter that offers to have the property surveyed. There's a place where you sign if you do not want it, and they have to make several attempts. And they will give us the copies of everybody that got that notice and the results. So we will know who said yes and who said no. So that was that, the video, the survey question. Then the other two things I'll just briefly address were recourse. I heard the question regarding recourse. If there are any violations of any of these conditions, anybody, whether that's an abutter or anybody walking by or driving by, can report violation of a condition. They can report it directly to me by telephone or email. They can report it to the building commissioner, anybody in the building department, again, by email, telephone. They could report it to the mayor by email or telephone, to the city council or by email or telephone. There's also an online app on the city website. I believe it's called 311, also known as C-Clip Fix. They could report it that way. You log in and you would list what the complaint was, and then it gets assigned to a department. It will come to our department. It will come into the building department, inspectional services. You could also, call the fire department. You could call the police department. Everybody that received notice of this hearing will also receive a copy of the decision. So if this decision is to grant the special permits, these conditions and requirements will be listed. So everybody will have a copy of that. So there's a lot of different ways, but reporting.
And that would include any damage to property.
Yes, the damage, the damage part of it was the other point. Once you have the video survey done, I believe you would have to pursue a claim with the petitioner, with their insurance company, if there's any damage. But you will have the proof because you'll have the video and you'll be able to say, before it started, there wasn't a crack, for example. Now there is. So that's going to give you the documentation you would need to file for the claim. But that would have to be a personal, an insurance claim that the property owner files. But reporting will be the key. The recourse is you have to report it. And again, phone calls, emails, I would just, definitely make sure the concern is voiced. And then I think the only other question had to do with ledge removal. special permits. This is a special permit because they petitioned to remove ledge. It's the petitioner's choice to seek the special permit. This is an option to seek the special permit. If the board makes the required findings, you would grant it. The city isn't requiring ledge removal. The petitioner is asking for ledge removal because of what they want to build. So the city doesn't require ledge removal. There are, to my knowledge, ways to pin to ledge and construct on ledge. This board has seen that, you know, people sometimes do want to minimize the ledge removal or not go through this process. So those are up to the contractor and owner. And did I miss anything else?
Last one that I had written down, and if I could ask the Spatafor, is it the same construction company that did the pool that you put in recently? Mr. and Mrs. Spatafor, are you using the same construction company to do this work that you used to do the pool work?
Well, the specific pool company put the pool in, but Butchie did all the work around the pool. So yes, the question is yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that's all Mr.
Yes, and I
Glazer's
would
questions.
confirm that the pool permit was under the same contractor as this. This is all part of the same permit.
Okay, so I think that's all Mr. Glazer's questions and concerns addressed. So,
Yeah,
is there anything else,
well, no,
Michelle?
the only other thing I had written down was the noise. The hours of operation would in fact be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. unless this board restricts.
8 p.m. 6 days a week.
Yeah. That's for construction equipment and things like deliveries and things like that.
We'll address that
Yeah.
later when we hit the staff report.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're ready for the next person who would like to speak in favor. This is a section of the hearing where we speak with those that want to speak in favor of this petition.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Councilor Craig Spatafora. Go ahead, you are all set to talk. Councilor, you with us? You look like you're muted. And we cannot hear you right now. If you're attempting to talk, we cannot see that. All right, so.
Hear me now?
What's
Can you hear me? Yes. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Can you nod your head? All right, thank you. I apologize. I too want to speak in favor. I know this is, full disclosure, it is my cousin, Ward 3 resident. I will just say this, speaking from a Ward 3 resident, it is everything I think the Councilor Linehan said. They are good neighbors. Anthony owns a business in the city of Malden, certainly investing in the property. They live in the property. They are not creating, my pet peeves of off-street parking. In fact, they're probably going to make it better for themselves and their neighbors by getting some of the cars that they park on the side of their property into the proper place. It is a different type of property with the topography, and that's why it is a safety issue for them to put the garage where it is. And I'm not going to speak for the engineer or certainly the builder, but that's one of the reasons they want to do that is push it back. And they do live on the side of a hill, and that's why they want to do the chipping. I can assure you, as a councilor who's written a couple of the ordinances there with water retention and certainly erosion, I will make sure that the builder, my cousin, understands not only what the neighbors want, but what the city demands and needs in these situations. But again, I think it's a good improvement to their property. They are investing. It's something we want to see in all types of facets of the construction. And I just wanted to speak in favor of them. And I understand the neighbors' concerns. I did share this with my cousin when he was thinking about it, just because of the history of any type of chipping or dare I say blasting in the city of Malden. We know how we got these ordinances because of some engineering mistakes in the past. And that's why we have some of the most stringent in the state. And again, I will assure you that I'll make sure my cousin and the builder work to make sure the neighbors are properly understand the work conditions and making sure that their property is safe. we know anytime we do any type of building like this, it does have an impact on the neighbors and neighborhoods. And again, speaking not only as a counselor or Ward 3 resident, but also some of my family, I will make sure that we do this in a way that's helpful for everybody and certainly protects the livelihood of their property and their loved ones. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
We do have one person that we're going to try to return to that was asking to speak before. So the name is Oli. Again, please indicate after we liven up your mic what your full name and home address is for the record. Go ahead, you're in it to talk.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Olivia Chikezie, 47 East Border Road, Malden, Mass. I'm in favor of the upgrade that they're trying to do. However, I am concerned because of the blasting. I want to make sure that my property is what is the closest to what is being blasted. And I want to make sure that there is not going to be any damage to my property. I'm not sure how you guys are going to do it. This is my first time, so I do not know all the intricacies and what needs to be done. However, I am diligent to make sure that whatever is being done is not going to affect my own property. However, I do not see why they cannot do it. As far as it does not affect my property in any way. I am the closest to what is going to be blasted, and I really don't want to have any damage whatsoever. So that's all I have to say on it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Michelle, would you like to speak to this? There will be no blasting.
There's no blasting. The method of ledge removal is by, it's called chipping or hammering. They attach a tool to a hydraulic hammer that's attached to an excavator. So it's hammering. There's no blasting. Blasting uses explosives, and that is not proposed. It's not allowed, and it would be prohibited if this permit were granted, if you make it prohibited. They're proposing this mechanical means. There is a second mechanical means also proposed in part called pre-drilling holes to assist with loosening the rock. So I added that as part of the recommended condition. So it will be hydraulic hammer mounted on an excavator with drilling holes. In terms of the damage, if there's any damage, you will have your property surveyed. I would strongly recommend that anybody that is offered to have the property surveyed, accept the offer, have the property surveyed. Then you will have proof if there's any damage. If there's any damage, you would need to, pursue an insurance claim. We can't, we don't know if there'll be any damage, so we can't. We hope there's no damage, but the reason the insurance policy is in there and the reason the ordinance is written to require these surveys, et cetera, and notice is to protect you or to assist you if your property is damaged.
Right. So the recommendation is, especially for 47 East Border Road.
Yes, there's also, right, a recommendation.
Accept the survey, and so you document what was done before any work starts happening, and they will be able to pursue it with the insurance company afterwards.
That's correct. And 47 East Border Road is also one of the properties I would recommend they have a seismograph placed because that is the closest dwelling. I will note 47 East Border Road did call me and tell me they hadn't received the notice. They are on the official list of abutters. We did not receive it returned, but I will not know you didn't receive the notice unless you call me. But we will ask for proof, as I said, from the petitioner of who they offered the survey to. So they are going to need to provide proof that it was mailed and offered and accepted or rejected, so.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this petition?
Yes, we do have someone else who's indicated they'd like to speak. Eden, go ahead, please. You're allowed to speak. And please, again, first and last name, as well as home address for the record. One moment. Okay. All right, go ahead. You are all set to speak.
Hi, this is Eden Garhart Smith at 16 Corey Road. I understand the need for the project and the desire. I guess two things. One, you can't do anything about, but schooling for my kids just started, so it's kind of frustrating that now we get to hear chipping for them. I mean, seriously, for my second grader, he just got a Chromebook 2 weeks ago and school's remote. So I'm not particularly excited about the timing of it, but I know that's probably outside your purview. My second issue is in the back of our yard is a easily like over 10-foot wall holding up woodland, a retaining wall. And if anything, specifically that I'm concerned about. So whatever can be done to make sure that stays intact and is not hurt would be appreciated. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
This time I see no more raised hands. I see no more in the Q&A, so I'll assume that that's it for that section.
Rita, you all set at the moment? Yeah. Michelle, do you have anything to read in favor?
No. I was just going to add that the survey covers buildings. I'm not sure that would include structures, but we could maybe talk about that. Or I think a retaining wall is considered a structure, not a building. So just in response to that last comment. No, I don't have anything to read.
Okay, there's no more, Ron, that
In
looking
favor,
to speak in favor? Terrific. Is there anyone that at this point, seeing and hearing no more, that want to speak in favor? We'll declare that part of the hearing closed. And then we will move on to those that would like to speak in opposition of this petition. So if there's anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please feel free to do as Ron said. If you're in the Zoom meeting, you can click down below and raise your hand for a question. If you're on the phone, press *9 and it will activate that you would like to be placed in the queue.
Okay, you have one person. Okay, person who's indicated as user one, please, again, full name and address for the record, please. Go ahead, you're permitted to speak. If you would unmute. Okay, well, I do not see this. This person is unmuting, so it could have been an errant hand raise, my guess, maybe.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? We gave user one an opportunity to weigh in, but they didn't. Do you see anyone else, Ron?
I see none in the Q&A, and I see no further hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, do you have anything to read in opposition?
No.
No. Very good. If we don't have anyone else who would like to speak in opposition, declare that part of the hearing closed. Michelle, could you take us through the staff report, please?
Yes. So this is the planning report and recommendation dated October 14th, 2020. I will be reading from this, but this entire report in recommendation is incorporated here and by reference into your public record. I will not read everything. Things that have been discussed, I'll just reference. We heard about the subject property, what the petition is, what the proposal involves, the plans and information supported in support of the petition are itemized here. Again, they are incorporated by reference into your, into the hearing and will be incorporated by reference into any decision you make. Ledge removal, alteration of grade, we heard about the means to do that, the proposal. They did submit the required pre-ledge geotech survey, erosion prevention plan, drainage calculations, stormwater management plan. In terms of zoning, the property is located in the Residence A zoning district. The single-family dwelling use is allowed. Direct abutters to the east and west single-family dwellings, and to the north, Middlesex Falls Reservation. To the south, on the other side of East Border Road, a single-family dwellings and a two-family dwelling. Surrounding land use is a single and two-family dwellings. Dimensional controls and parking. The existing dwelling complies with all dimensional controls and parking requirements except one side yard setback. The proposal creates new violations. Retaining walls and ledge cuts we didn't talk about. They are depicted on the plans. In some cases, you do see the note top of wall, bottom of wall. There is one note that says proposed face of ledge or landscape block wall to be field determined, not filed. Top to meet existing grade. So not sure exactly what the height of that wall or ledge cut will be. But I will note the maximum height of any ledge cut or retaining wall is 6 feet. That's per city ordinance. They have not pursued a variance of that, so they would need to comply with that. All ledge cuts and retaining walls will need to comply with that 6-foot high maximum. Findings required to grant a special permit. The proposal is not detrimental to the neighborhood, and the proposal will not adversely affect the general welfare or public safety. So those are the 2 findings you must make to grant a special permit. Do you want to move on to the recommendation? So this recommendation is made prior to the public hearing and provided the board makes those required findings. The recommendation is to grant a special permit subject to the following conditions. 1, all development shall be as per plans, which are incorporated herein by reference unless and except as modified by these conditions. 2, all ledge rock removal may be done only by hydraulic hammer mounted on an excavator and may include pre-drilling holes. And any ledge rock removal by blasting or any other mechanical or other means is prohibited. 3, during site development, implement erosion controls as per plan. 4, offer and conduct pre-ledge removal video and photographic survey of all buildings within 500 feet of the property lines of the subject property, which consent, and provide survey to property owner. Before ledge removal begins, provide city with lists of all properties surveyed and contacted. 5, during any ledge removal activity, place seismograph on site and at the following properties or property line with 47 East Border Road and 61 East Border Road. Submit seismograph tapes to fire chief for review daily. 6, maintain liability insurance of a minimum of $100,000, $300,000 with City of Malden named as a lost payee. 7, during the site development, hire fire details and provide a fire watch at any time as the fire chief deems appropriate and necessary in his reasonable discretion. 8, during site development, hire local police details as the police chief deems appropriate in his reasonable discretion. 9, deliver written notice to all premises within 500 feet of the property lines of the subject property, indicating the date or dates of ledge removal activity will be conducted and the hours of beginning and end daily for the same. Submit a copy of notice or notices to the city. 10, the maximum height post-development of any ledge cut or retaining wall is 6 feet. 11, the hours of operation for any ledge removal and or any construction equipment operated for ledge removal or site grading preparation at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. I would recommend you also, or for your consideration, that you add construction, trucks, and deliveries. To that. So it would be the hours of operation for any ledge removal and or any construction equipment operated for ledge removal or site grading preparation, and for any construction trucks and deliveries are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. 12, install stormwater management system and mitigation as per plan with any modification subject to approval of city engineer. 13, submit as-built site plan including addition, driveway, stairs, walkways, retaining walls, and ledge cuts. So that's after the project's done. They would submit that showing exactly everything that was done. In 14, provide construction schedule and owner, site engineer, geotechnical engineer, and contractor shall attend a meeting with city engineering department and city planner prior to the start of work. We have started putting that in as a recommended condition on these permits so that all the people that are involved in the project are going to be well aware of all these conditions and requirements. We did have an experience a few years back, you'll recall, where different people came to the hearing and different people were involved, and then when conditions weren't being followed, they said, well, we weren't aware, and this way everybody will group together and be made aware of all the requirements for the project.
Very good. I believe that addresses everything. How far away is Corey Road, 16 Corey Road? Is that within the 500 feet?
Yes.
Okay, so 16 Corey Road.
Yeah. 16
Ms.
Corey
Gordon
Road.
Smith will have an option of having her property surveyed.
She will be able to have the property surveyed. It does say all buildings, and buildings aren't necessarily structures. So if it's a shed or if it's considered a building, you know, there's a roof and walls, it would be. I don't believe this covers retaining walls. She could ask during that for that, unless you want to specifically put that in. I'm not sure if the retaining wall is on her property or if it is part of the Corey Road, if it's part of the Woodland Road, if it's city owned or if she owns it or where it is. So if it's city owned, obviously, and there's an issue. If that property owns it, then it would be their responsibility. So it's up to you whether you want to call that specifically out, leave it up to her negotiation when the survey comes around, or what you want to do.
Yeah, I think it should be left up as part of the negotiation when the survey's distributed.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Michelle? Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michelle, how many properties have buildings within 500 feet of this address?
The certified abutters list. I believe had 70 properties on it. However, they did include, the abutters do include state and city-owned land and vacant land. So there are at least 70 properties that will be given the option for this survey. Not all 70 have buildings on them. So.
And as it relates to condition 5 for the placement of seismographs, is it typically just the immediate abutters that are included in that list?
We usually do the immediate, the direct abutters, unless somebody else asks for it. You'll recall on a couple other cases, somebody who wasn't a direct abutter but was very close requested it, and it's up to the board's discretion where to require them. That minimum is that it's on site by ordinance.
I would suggest, based on the specific concerns addressed by the resident at 62 East Border Road, that we consider adding that address to condition 5.
Okay. So condition 5 would say, if the properties are a property line with 47 East Border, 61 East Border Road, and 62 East Border Road.
Yes.
Is what you're recommending as an amendment, okay.
Anyone else? Any questions for Michelle? Do you have that, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, if no one has any other questions, is there a motion? And I'll remind the folks here and on the call that Risa Gray is not participating in this petition.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Eric McCush has made a motion. What would you like the motion to be?
I'd like to make a motion to grant the special permit with all conditions, modifying condition number 5 to add number 62 East Border Road, and modifying number 11 to include construction trucks and delivery for that 9 to 4 timeline.
Okay, so recommendation of staff as amended during the meeting. Okay, Eric made a motion or recommendation of staff as amended during the meeting. Is there a second for it?
Second.
Diane Schuhar seconded. Okay, Michelle will take the call, a roll call in a moment. Are you ready?
Yes. Diane Schuhar?
Yes.
Patrick Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Tawana Gebrselassie? Yes. Patrick Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry?
Yes.
Eric McCush?
Yes.
Henry Susie?
Yes.
Chuck Harrell.
Yes, the petition has been granted 8-0. Thank you very much. Good luck with it.
Sorry, having problems there. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the board for their time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give us a moment to transition. The next hearing we will hear is 495 Broadway, Malden. Okay, and Risa Gray will be participating on this one.
I realize now you're waiting for me.
Yes, please.
Okay, the
Read
Malden-
notice.
Malden Planning Board will virtually and remotely hold a public hearing at 7 PM on Wednesday, October 14, 2020, on the petition of John Sarufin and Eddie Colometta on behalf of Provident Realty Trust seeking a special permit under section 12.030, chapter 12 revised ordinances of 2020 of the city of Malden to allow motor vehicle repair shop use of property in the highway business zoning district at the property known as the numbered 495 Broadway, Malden, also known by city assessors parcel ID 156575040. This is pursuant to permit number CMID 0328788-2020.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle. Is the petitioner present? I see Attorney McDonald's out there.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Patrick McDonald on behalf of the petitioners in this matter with offices at 479 Eastern Avenue. Preliminarily, Mr. Chairman, I want to make the board aware that I am in possession of the original tear sheets related to the statutory publications. I know that the board often obtains copies of its own. I'm not sure if it has done so in this instance, but if not, I'd ask to be able to, or ask the board to accept my representation that I am in possession of them and be permitted to submit them to the board either through scan and email or hard copy mail subsequent to this evening.
Yes, we did receive copy. We did obtain our own copies. Thank you, though. You don't need to.
And with that resolved, Mr. Chairman, also on a preliminary matter, I've had an opportunity to discuss with the petitioners many of the specifics identified in Planner Romero's planning report to the board. And I've been asked to request of the board a tabling of this matter for several reasons, some of which I would suggest to the board are major, others of which are somewhat more minor. The major reasons we're seeking a tabling at this time is in general to clarify some uncertainty and inconsistency related to the submitted materials in support of the petition, specifically in one instance, the plans. I note that the parking plan, the amended site plan, which doubles as a parking plan for our purposes tonight, appears to have some deficiencies or missing information related to several important factors for the board's consideration. The most important of which I would suggest is the dimensions of the parking spaces depicted thereon. The preparer of the plan accurately designated and identified those areas on the parcel that will make up the parking related to the current use and the proposed new use. But the dimensions of the parking spaces themselves are not specifically identified anywhere on the plan. That includes both those parking spaces that exist or are proposed on the open areas of the parcel, as well as a number of parking spaces that are depicted as being contained within the two structures that occupy the parcel. We'd like to seek and obtain, if possible, an amended plan, or at least the information related to those measurements. I also note that the plan itself references repair areas or work areas in both buildings. Those areas are not specifically identified in terms of linear measurements. And I think that would be a helpful addition to the plan, either in a revised or updated plan, or again, if not in that, in simply submission of information upon which the board could rely and act regarding the size. And I suggest that's important because Planner Romero has indicated that, and I would say correctly, that interior parking spaces can be considered as compliant for parking in any matter, but they do need to be zoning compliant in terms of dimensions, and they cannot appear at least to impede access to the interior structure or encroach in any way on any proposed work areas. And I believe that if we could either get the information or submit a revised plan, that issue would be much clearer to the board. I also think that there is another major issue that needs clarification for the board, that being the current use of 495 Broadway as a used car dealership that has a quote-unquote accessory use within its building for repair purposes. I have provided at Planner Romero's request some information obtained from my client, the petitioner, regarding the nature of those repairs, and I would represent to the board that Mr. Colometta, as the Class 2 dealership licensee who currently operates out of the 495 building on the plan, does engage in what I might suggest is light repair work on motor vehicles in the area that you see depicted on the current version of the plan. By light, I mean as a used car dealer, there are times when the dealer, both upon receipt of inventory, may make some modest minor repairs to the vehicle. The vehicles, before they're placed on the lot for display, for sale purposes are prepped, quote unquote, for that cleaning, maybe interior corrections or correcting deficiencies on the interior. And as a used car dealer, he does offer warranties on any vehicles he sells. And there are occasions when a vehicle that is purchased by a third-party customer returns the vehicle to the dealer for purposes of warranty repairs. He does conduct warranty repairs of a light nature. He does not conduct heavy repairs. He's not dropping transmissions or repairs of that sort in there. Those kind of heavy repairs, if covered by the warranty and if they need to be made, are done off-site at other third-party mechanic or repair shops. There seems to be some question whether or not he is permitted to do that by virtue of his Class 2 dealer license. We take the position respectfully that he is, and that is a common practice and something that occurs throughout the city with all Class 2 license holders. However, we would like an opportunity, most likely to consult with Building Commissioner Miller to see if we can obtain either clarification or confirmation from him regarding that, or perhaps if the matter is tabled, to secure his appearance at any rescheduled date in order that he may address that particular issue to the board. I'd suggest that that's a very important issue. I think it's important for the board to know that to the extent the petitioner is conducting repairs in one building on the site, that he's doing so in compliance with zoning at this point in time. There are a couple of other issues with the plan. There are discrepancies, and I apologize, I cannot explain for the board why there appear to be certain discrepancies between city assessor records related to the structures on site and interior square footage, and in fact some discrepancies between versions of the plans that have been submitted. I'd suggest to the board that I'm just a lawyer, I'm not an engineer or a surveyor or an architect. These materials submitted in support of the application were prepared by third-party professionals, and it's certainly important for the board and important for the petitioner that we get some confirmation or a greater sense of certainty about what the exact measurements are, and we'd like to approach our professionals who did the plan work to see if we can clarify that issue. I'm not sure. I'm like the board members. I'm only capable of looking at a plan and assuming that the measurements were conducted and identified on the plan by the professionals who prepared them in an appropriate manner. But I think we need to clarify that issue. Also, a relatively minor issue on the plan. There is a snow storage area depicted on the plan. Planner Romero's staff report and recommendation suggested that there wasn't, probably an oversight on her part, but it is depicted on the plan, a snow storage area. However, that area is not or does not include dimensions, another aspect of the plan that I think could be cleaned up and corrected for the benefit of the board. With respect to more minor issues that I would argue support a request for tabling and an allowance of a tabling request at this point. We do note from the report a couple of issues, the storage of a boat. I'll represent to the board that the boat is the personal property of one of the petitioners, John Sarufin, and it's going to be removed, but I believe we should remove that now before the board substantively entertains the petition. The site is admittedly a bit of an eyesore. It needs to be cleaned up, and I'm instructing the petitioners, my clients, to engage in a thorough cleanup of the property so that if this matter is tabled, when we again reappear before the board, we're not dealing with anything like that. And I also note that the report reflects that the existing dumpster on the site utilized by the current occupant, Mr. Colometta, the Class 2 dealer licensee, does not contain an enclosure or screening. He's indicated to me that that is something that he can take care of comparatively quickly and will do so that if we are permitted to table this matter, Mr. Chairman, and reappear before the board in a hopefully not too distant date, that these comparatively minor issues will not be issues anymore. And what are frankly more substantive issues and of greater importance to the board, the cleanup and the clarification on the plans regarding measurements of parking spaces, measurements of work areas within the existing structures, measurements of the snow storage area are all plainly and clearly either depicted on a new plan or, as I suggested, at least specific information and on the record information and confident information regarding those dimensions and measurements can be provided to the board. And again, a much more substantive issue and of concern to the board is the legality of the Class 2 dealer licensee's use of the existing structure at 495 for the light repair work that is done to his inventory only. It is not done to third-party vehicles or unrelated vehicles. He's not operating a repair business per se, but he is undeniably doing light repair work on his sale inventory. And I believe confirmation, clarification from the building department, most likely through Commissioner Miller, would be of importance and of assistance in the board on that issue. So respectfully, for those reasons, we're asking the board to entertain a request to table this matter to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the planning board. I do understand that scheduling, given that the board is working through the backlog generated due to the shutdown, the coronavirus shutdown, that being put on the agenda for next month may or may not be something that's possible. I would only ask that if we couldn't, if the board does allow the tabling request and does move it to another meeting, if it can be accommodated at the next regularly scheduled meeting, obviously we would prefer that. However, we defer to the board in terms of the actual scheduling of a renewed date. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. I'd also suggest that in addition to the removing the boat, which is in the snow removal area, and then there's a dumpster in there, you also get rid of the pallets, the debris, the worn out tires that were all in between 495 and 497. I'd also suggest if there's not a marble or granite operation at 495, you get rid of the marble or granite or whatever was to the right of 495, along with the metal holders or braces that were holding them up. I also noticed some metal braces thrown up into the woods that looked like they were also used for the marble operation, and pallets and just general debris. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I really suggest, it was very disappointing to see the condition of the site when I went out and did the on-site inspection. It was very chaotic and very a lot of just debris and outside storage when they shouldn't be outside storage, other than the used cars. So I think you have a significant amount of work on the lot and on the hill behind the buildings that you need to address before you come back, if you are allowed to table. Have you been up there, Councilor? Do you know what I'm speaking to?
I don't know everything you have listed, Mr. Chairman, but I know the majority of it. Let me put it that way. And I can comfortably represent to the board that a thorough cleanup and clean out would be done to the property prior to reappearing before the board on this petition, if it is tabled as requested.
And just to help manage expectations, we're looking out now to possibly December or January for the next opening on the agenda.
I saw that in the in the agenda posted for this evening's meeting, Chairman, that next month's meeting is a special meeting, which I typically understand to mean that you have a particular matter that the board wants to address on that date, and most likely that's going to be the only matter addressed that date. So I have made the petitioners aware that most likely the best case scenario for a rescheduled date is December. Hopefully that can be accommodated by the board. But again, we would understand if scheduling being as it is, if that ended up being a January date. Those timeframes are not problematic for the petitioner if the tabling is allowed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I just want to just help manage expectations there. Okay, so I think the first thing we need to do, because it's less than a week ahead, we have to suspend rules.
Yeah, well, you would have to first determine whether there are exigent circumstances that require or that would allow the tabling, for you to consider the tabling request within less than 7 business days. If you find exigent circumstances, you can just move forward and consider the request. If you don't find exigent circumstances, you should waive your rule requiring exigent circumstances first, and then you can move forward. Otherwise, you can proceed with the hearing and then consider a tabling request. So, you know, it's just because it's being made at the start before you do a hearing. That's what's triggering that rule.
I mean, the many and egregious discrepancies that appear to be on this plan, we only have access to what we have. And as the council said, we can't tell the engineering components of it. Help me, Michelle, would that constitute exigent circumstances, having
well, I mean, it could, I mean, or, you know.
Because it's not just one thing, it's not a misspelling or
No,
something
there's a
mislabeled.
lot of there's some missing information. There's definitely some discrepancies between like what's stated on the plan, but then the numbers shown on the plan don't match the text. Then you have the floor plan, which was done by a different firm that contains different numbers. So there's a few discrepancies, and the issue of the legal use of the existing business, I raised as an issue and tried to get as much information from, you know, all the departments I could, city clerk that issues the license, the building commissioner. I wasn't able to verify anything before the start of the hearing, so that's why I noted that. I think that there may, you know, it's my understanding from the building commissioner, Nelson Miller, telling me that the class 2 licenses were automatically reissued by the council to existing license holders, but that there are no approved plans at this time because they've been considering since a year or so ago, revising the rules. So they do have a valid class 2 license, but all it says is 27 cars subject to plan on file, and there is no plan on file. And it doesn't say anything about the repairs, so we'd have to maybe revisit that. Maybe they'll have to go back to the council to get something in writing. Commissioner Miller wasn't aware of anything. We didn't have any records. So is that exigent? Well, probably not. I mean, it's something that we probably could have found. They probably could have found out.
So you'd recommend we waive?
I mean, I would just waive the rule. Usually it's exigent like this, death or absence. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not just that it wasn't ready. It wasn't well prepared, you know. So I think you typically waive the rule anyway. So I mean, I think it's just more of a procedural thing. Unless again you want to move forward, it's up to you. I think they've given you a lot of reasons. You know, the other option would be they withdraw without prejudice and then they refile when they're ready. I don't know how quickly all this stuff is going to get done, or if we will just leave it, if you were to table it, that I won't schedule it until I have everything in hand and complete. Because I don't want to put it on if there's an opportunity for November and then find out we still don't have what we need. So I would suggest you make that as part of your motion, that it not be scheduled until all information is received.
Is updated and received. Right. No, yes, that's definitely.
It's up to you. I mean, honestly, at this point, it's not necessarily really a backlog. We're being asked to consider some other things in terms of possible zoning amendments and things like that. So honestly, if they refiled tomorrow, they might get on in December anyway.
Yeah.
It's not really a delay.
I think they got quite a bit of work cleaning up that lot too.
It looked like a lot to me, yeah.
But, okay, so is there a motion to waive our rules for tabling less than 1 week ahead of the meeting?
I'll make a motion. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
no, Diane made the motion. Patrick, would you like to second it? Patrick Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay, so Diane made the motion to waive our rules. Patrick Fitzgerald seconded it.
Okay, Diane Chuha? Yes. Patrick Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Tawadam Gabrielsi? Yes. Lisa Gray? Yes. Patrick Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry?
Yes.
Eric Bush?
Yes.
Henry Susie?
Yes.
Chuck Nolan?
Yes, so we've voted to suspend our rules. Is there a motion, Patrick Fitzgerald?
I would move to grant the petitioner's request to table the matter to a date when all of the requested information is available.
Okay, Eric Henry, did you want to second that, or did you have a question?
I had a question, actually, more so for a point of information. I was just curious as to how many people who may be out virtually in this, who are here to hear this petition. Do you have an indication from Ron about that?
Doesn't appear to be anyone, but
You're talking about panelists or you're talking about?
who's on Zoom that is listening and interested in this meeting? I see the attorney, the petitioners, and us.
That's just the panelists.
Yeah, the other, yeah, so for the panelists, you've just outlined, but as far as attendees, there's probably 7 folks and probably 4 of them are not here, for this. Like, for instance, we have one person who's broadcasting it. Council Spatafora is still here. We have Linda that's on, MATB's on. So I think maybe 1 or 2.
So no indication that there's members of the public who are here specifically to, to raise their hand or ask questions or whatever.
I wouldn't feel comfortable making that determination. I can only just say who's there, so I'm not totally sure on that, but nobody's raised their hand or indicated that.
Okay, so Eric, are you all set with that, or?
Yes.
Okay, Patrick Fitzgerald's made a motion. Is there a second for Patrick? Diane Chuha has made a second of Patrick's motion to allow tabling until such time where the petitioner hands in all the revised and required documentation that to Michelle, then they will be put on the agenda, next available slot on the agenda.
Do you want notice to go to abutters?
Yes.
Okay, so they won't be required to re-advertise, but we will post on the city website and with the city clerk, and we will notify abutters. And there were approximately 50 to 60 property owners notified of this hearing. So we will resend the notices.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's good, thank you.
Okay, so this is a motion to table to date when all information available and all documentation has been submitted. And it was Patrick Fitzgerald, seconded by Diane.
Yes.
Okay, Chuha, okay. So on the motion, do the vote.
Yes, please.
Diane Chuha? Yes. Patrick Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Tawadam Gabrielsi? Yes. Lisa Gray? Yes. Patrick Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry?
Yes.
Eric Bush?
Yes.
Henry Susie?
Yes.
Chuck Nolan?
Yes, so it's been allowed to be tabled. And when you submit all the revised information and chase down the issues associated with the Class 2 license, and clean up the lot and do all those things, remove the boat, remove the outside storage, then work with Michelle on getting her that information, and we will get you on as soon as we can after we receive that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item that we have on our agenda is 7. I don't see 7 line.
I don't see it on the agenda.
Yes, it should be on the second page. Turn it, is it a two-sided?
Yeah, this is next meeting.
Yes, the next meeting. Okay, so we're gonna see, can we do this? Yeah. Not on the,
This must be a, you go from 3, so 4 is missing. Hmm.
I don't know. There's a couple versions of it and it's not on any. Go down the wrong path. but
Yeah, well, I think you could take it up,
It's not, it's a public meeting, it's not a,
yeah, you can take it up under, it's properly before you, it's an advisory recommendation, so you can take it up, that's my clerical error that it's not listed.
so we have
We did
7,
discuss at the last meeting that we were gonna discuss it at this meeting, because it wasn't ready last month, so this is an advisory recommendation, that you would consider making to the city council. Just let me get this together here. This is just being done at a public meeting. There's no public hearing requirement. It should, what I will do is I will post it on your next agenda to ratify and confirm so that it's noted that you did this. But it is properly before you. So let me just find it.
while you're looking for that, I'll just fill in the time a little bit. I don't know if people saw the meeting last night, the council meeting, they addressed 323 Commercial Street, which was the other marijuana retailer. So they heard that last night. This would be the second one that we have in the queue. The third one is on Eastern Ave, and that's been paused by the petitioner with the old JRM facility down on Eastern Avenue across from the cemetery. So this would be our second one that we're making a recommendation to the city council on the zoning.
Let me just ask, do people have it? Because
I don't-
did people get a copy of a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
we
I'm
have-
thinking maybe I never even gave it to be copied. Okay, because I don't have one. So, let me, I should have it. I should have one here somewhere.
I have one.
Yeah,
Make sure you use mine if you want.
yeah. Maybe I will, because I'm not seeing it here. So everybody has the recommendation, you have the plans and everything that was submitted. So this is an advisory recommendation. That again, you would be submitting to the special permit granting authority, who is the city council. The proposal has been reviewed by the city's cannabis licensing and enforcement commission and approved to proceed to the zoning process. If the council grants a special permit, the city will negotiate a community host agreement, following which petitioner may apply for a license from the state Cannabis Control Commission. If the proposal is approved by the state commission, our local commission will then review again for issuance of a local license. Let me just see, maybe there's an extra one. So the subject property consists of a parcel that's about 21,563 square feet. It's the site of a paved parking lot used by abutting businesses, and it's a freestanding location of a freestanding sign or billboard structure. The property includes a portion of Linehurst Road. Vehicular access to the site is from two private ways, Linehurst Road and Leonardo Avenue, which are accessible from the State Highway, Route 1. Linehurst Road continues southeast into Revere and is accessible via Agatha and Morris Streets in Revere. So the petitioner is a tenant doing business as East Coast Cannabis and or Standard Naturals. The proposed use is a marijuana establishment and marijuana retailer. So that's the type of marijuana establishment, marijuana retailer. The proposal is to construct a new single-story building with a gross floor area of 3,000 square feet. And it includes different areas. I've broken it down for you here in the staff report. This is based on the plans. There's a retail area with 25 point of sale stations, entrance vestibule, security checkpoint, exit vestibule. That's the area that's open to the public. So it's about 1,551 square feet. Then there's an office, product storage, intake space, break room, mechanical utilities, security, janitor, restrooms. Those are only for employees. You have the plans itemized here, I won't go through it, that were submitted in support of the petition, the concept site plan, the light site plan that includes layout of materials. We also have first floor plans, renderings, and exterior elevations of the different facades. You do have a traffic impact report, a memorandum, and a follow-up response prepared by Bayside Engineering. Under this proposal, the existing freestanding sign of the billboard will remain and the existing parking lot will be eliminated. So the property is located in the Highway Business Zoning District. It's currently used as I said for parking lot with 46 spaces are used by the abutting businesses. The proposed marijuana retailer is a business use allowed by special permit in the Highway Business Zoning District. The direct abutter to the south is a self-storage business. To the west, a vacant parcel of land designated as a paper unconstructed street owned by the city of Malden. To the east, on the other side of Linehurst Road, are retail sales businesses, Cappy's Liquor Store. And to the north, on the other side of Route 1, a motel and mobile home trailer park. Surrounding land uses are residential to the south and west. On Linehurst Road, Agatha Street, Morris Street, Revere. To the south and west on Overlook Ridge Drive. Dimensional controls, the property is the site of a freestanding non-accessory sign structure mounted with 2 billboard signs. It's a pre-existing non-conforming structure prohibited by zoning. It was reconstructed pursuant to a special permit issued by this board in 2014. The proposed new building complies with all dimensional controls. In terms of parking and loading, the proposal also complies and provides the required 12 parking spaces, 1 loading space. Number of spaces, they're depicting 19 spaces on site and 1 loading space or bay. According to petitioner, they may enter into an agreement for use in perpetuity of 30 parking spaces on the abutting property. That's across Linehurst, so at the Cappy's Liquor Store. The access is actually off of Linehurst Road, so you come off of Route 1 onto Linehurst Road, then there are 2 existing driveways that are accessed. The layout and everything is conforming with our requirements. In terms of traffic impact, the city's peer review report of petitioner's traffic impact report and follow-up response is contained in correspondence dated June 26, 2020 and September 22nd, 2020 from Ken Petralia. And you have copies of those reports in your package. It includes recommendations for traffic and safety mitigation, specifically regarding traffic signs, to install traffic signs or similar devices at 3 locations, an advanced sign to alert northbound motorists of the approaching southerly access, a yield sign at each of the 2 site entrances, and a stop sign for the motorists exiting at the northernmost exit. 2 pavement markings to restripe lane delineations, painted arrows, shoulders markings, and painted arrows within the study area. 3, pedestrian activity to install a bold crosswalk to shelter pedestrians walking between the proposed site and the proposed additional parking at the additional site and other generators. And 4, landscaping to set back a minimum of 3 feet or more if required to provide adequate sight distance, cut back and maintain existing vegetation. New plantings be designed to provide proper sight distance. And then 5, a deceleration lane is also recommended to coordinate with Mass DOT to modify the existing shoulder on the approach to the southerly access to a deceleration lane. There are certain other special controls and requirements that the council is going to need to follow to grant a special permit, specifically regarding increases in dimensional controls and parking requirements, and whether they would be more detrimental to the neighborhood. The proposal cannot be located in a permanent building, not within a mobile facility, movable structure, cannot be located within a building containing residential units, including transient housing. Must be the principal use of the property. It may be accessory only to another type of marijuana establishment at the same property. It is prohibited as an accessory use to any other use, and the location must comply with buffer zones specified. I will not read those out loud. We do have verification from building commissioner and zoning enforcement officer Nelson Miller that the proposed location does comply with all applicable buffer zones. It does appear to comply with these other special requirements. It's located in a permanent building. It's not in a building containing residential units, and it is the principal use of the property. The council is going to have to make the determination whether there's any. There are no increase in dimensional controls over parking violations, but they would need to make a determination whether it's more detrimental to the neighborhood if there were. Findings required to grant the special permit. The council is going to need to find that the proposal will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood, is not in conflict with surrounding land uses, is in the interest of the common good. The traffic and traffic patterns generated by the proposal will not adversely impact any of the surrounding streets or create a traffic safety hazard. That the proposal will not generate any noise, odor, fumes, vibration, heat, or other conditions that may be noxious or cause a nuisance to the community, danger to public health, impair public comfort, and convenience. And they will need to find that the proposal is not detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood of the city. So the council has to make all those required findings. You're not making those required findings. What you would be doing is making an advisory recommendation that says, provided that the council makes those recommended findings, makes those required findings, and finds the proposal in conformance with the dimensional and parking and other controls, that you would recommend to the city council that a special permit be granted subject to certain conditions. You want me to go through those?
Yes, please.
Okay, so one, that the special permit granted in case 1403 shall remain in full force and effect. That's the special permit that you issued for the billboard structure. It has certain specific requirements about mitigation to the city, so we want to make sure that stays in effect, and also a couple other requirements and conditions specific to that billboard. Two, all development shall be as per plans, which are incorporated herein by reference and except when modified by these conditions. Three, the retail sales area open to the public shall be limited to the location, area, and size shown on the plans. Any change shall require an amendment of the special permit. Four, install, repair, replace sidewalks, driveways, and perform necessary incidental work adjacent to the property to the reasonable satisfaction of the DPW director. Implement traffic and safety mitigation recommended by the city peer reviewer in reports dated June 26, 2020 and September 22nd, 2020 regarding traffic signs, pavement markings, crosswalk to abutting property, landscaping and deceleration lane, subject to review and approval of Mass DOT where required. 6, the special permit is non-transferable and non-assignable. 7, design and implement a security plan approved by the Malden Police Chief, which shall include without limitation all security measures for the site and the transportation of marijuana products to and from off-site premises to ensure the safety of employees and the public and to protect the premises property from theft or other criminal activity. A detailed explanation of payment method, if applicable, acceptable at such establishment, and the protection and security of such payments, and if applicable, cash on site, and the presence of a security guard on site at all hours of operation. 8, consumption of marijuana and or marijuana products is prohibited at or within 500 feet. 9, smoking or burning of marijuana and or marijuana products is prohibited on the premises. 10, marijuana in any form, including plants and marijuana products, shall not be visible from outside of the building. 11, any outside storage of any kind is prohibited. 12, any outside display of any kind is prohibited. 13, odor control technology, incorporate odor control technology and provisions and ensure that emissions do not violate Mass General Laws, Chapter 111, Section 31C, including but not limited to those specified for odors. And 14, prior to issuance of any building permit or occupancy permit, submit copies of the following licenses and approvals. A valid license issued by the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission as defined here in this ordinance. B, a fully executed community host agreement with the city of Malden as defined here in this ordinance. And C, any required license and/or approvals issued by the Malden License Board. And D, any required license and/or approvals issued by the Malden Board of Health. Those conditions 6 through 14 that I just read are required conditions to any special permit in all cases. Conditions 1 through 5 were specific to this case. And then there's an additional condition, condition 15, that I would recommend you recommend, that states provide a written copy of written agreement for use in perpetuity of 30 parking spaces off-site at abutting property, 325 State Highway, Malden. That's parcel ID 185574401. So that is the recommendation. That is what I would recommend. And that would be up to this board to decide whether you want to make that advisory recommendation to the council.
So, I mean, the comment I was gonna make was, when I was reading that condition 15, it didn't immediately make sense to me why we were asking them to have 30 additional parking spots, because the requirement is 12. They're showing 19, but when I was looking at the plan itself, they have 25 cash registers laid out in the plan. So if they're gonna have 25 people, worst case scenario, they've got 25 people, because I'm presuming these aren't like a kiosk where you just go up and put your credit card in and hit a number like a vending machine. They look like they're cash registers on the plan. That made a lot more sense than requiring that additional parking.
Well, it was mentioned in the traffic reports that there would be additional parking. So when we asked about that, we said provide more peer review and provide more information about this additional parking. They offered it. Then they told us where it would be and that there'd be an agreement available. So I would recommend if they're offering that you add that in, because I do expect there could potentially.
No, I like that.
Especially with that location, there could potentially be, I agree, they do comply with the parking. So if you don't want to recommend it, it's up to you. And of course, the council may not accept that recommendation.
No, I like it in there, especially after viewing last night and the potential volume that they're anticipating. I mean, I looked last night that it was just some back of the envelope math was they're gonna have to do 700 or 800 transactions a day, 7 days a week, all year to hit their revenue target. Based on the average sale that they've been experiencing in Massachusetts. So, I mean, if that's the case, that's a heck of a volume going through there. And, I feel a little bit at a disadvantage that we don't have that information here, but we're not the special permit granting authority. So, we no real need for us to have it. But, it's just, thinking that down the road a little bit, I'm curious to see what their business case would be and what their anticipated volume is. So.
That's all in their license application and the proposal, which wasn't submitted as part of the zoning package. It was reviewed by our local commission and vetted, and everything was determined to be satisfactory. That's why it moved on to the zoning process.
No, and that's fine. I'm not disputing that.
So we could get that information, but it wasn't part of the zoning review.
Yeah, I'm just saying that out of my own personal curiosity about seeing how this stuff's all evolving.
I believe it is online if you wanted to see it. I think the proposals for all the applicants are online, but I can get people that info if they want it.
Yeah, no, I can also go up and look at that.
Do you know what the average dollar sale is?
Supposedly, I think it said last night in Massachusetts it's $40, and I think nationally it's 47. Is what the two numbers they cited last night were 40 and 47. So I mean, you look at the that one yesterday is looking to do 14 million a year. They're open 7 days a week. Now, varying hours. Sundays are less, I believe, less hours than the rest of the week.
Yeah, they gave the range that 14 million was their original estimate. Then they said it could be 6 to 14 million.
Yeah, and at one point they settled it at 10. When I came up with like 684 transactions, I used $10 million divided by 40. And then divide that by 365, and I came up with like 684. Just going from memory last night as I was watching along. So, that'd be 1,300. Almost 1,400 trips. Well, that's not fair because the commercial street location is more accessible to public transportation and walking and bicycling and things like that. Route 1 is going to be tough south and say you're going to take the bus to Route 1. Because you're going to have to get down on the backside of the Revere and then walk up over.
And this is late too. This should have been. We're disconnected. Did you people have pictures of Linehurst?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. These are extra. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. I just found a pile of them, so I'm like, oh no, nobody got to see them. I'm losing my mind. So.
But no, so I mean, it's a heck of a volume they're looking to do. I guess I'm not surprised at that, those were the only comments I had. I don't know if anyone else has any. If no one has any, is there a motion to make this recommendation to the city council? Is there a motion? Henry Susi is making a motion to recommend the recommendation of staff, Henry?
Yes.
To the city council. Second, Patrick Fitzgerald. Yes. Is seconding it.
Diane Duha? Yes. Patrick Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Tawana Tiavarsalasi? Yes. Lisa Gray?
Yes.
Patrick Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry?
Yes.
Eric Bush?
Yes.
Henry Susi?
Yes.
Jeffrey Holman.
Yes.
We will make that recommendation. I believe the hearing is scheduled for next week, so we will make that recommendation in writing.
Okay, the last couple items, Ken isn't here, so we don't have a community preservation committee update. Michelle, could you give us updates on the remaining three?
The Broadway corridor plan study. Well, I could just briefly tell you, Community Preservation Committee, I've been contacted by the new liaison. They're working on new application materials, and they've asked us for checklists and what do we use for submission requirements and things like that. So I've been working with that new person on that to help them get their rules and procedures in order. Broadway corridor plan study we're still working towards the final draft. I will present that to you when we receive it. Inclusionary Zoning Advisory Committee, I have a written update for you. This is a memo from the MRA Senior Planner Policy Manager, Evan Spatrini, to the mayor. It was CC'd to the Malden City Council, but it was also sent to me, and I decided it would be important and got approval to send it to you. So that's what this looks like, a memo. This just gives you an update on the study that I'm a member of the committee, so this is better than any update I can provide. So you can take that home and read it. And then the mayor's working group to review zoning ordinances. We're still meeting and we're still working on a couple items. The inclusionary zoning piece, we're waiting for the feasibility study. The Malden River zoning piece we may be seeing soon. And then there's also commercial incentive overlay, some zoning ideas we're considering for commercial. So that's it.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is next meeting. For those of you who've looked at the calendar already, second Wednesday is Veterans Day. I don't know if City Hall's closed, but
Yes.
So City Hall's closed, and we won't be having a meeting that day. We're thinking of November 19th, and it would be a joint hearing with the Ordinance Committee for some papers that they want to be reviewed. So the next hearing we're going to have won't be a regular meeting, it'll be a special meeting. And it's looking like it's going to be November 19th. And then
Everybody
December 9th.
responded and told me you were available the 12th or the 19th, but I believe the 19th works better from the publication and things to get everything in order, since I don't have the papers yet for this zoning ordinance, but we expect them. If for some reason they're not ready to move forward with the amendments, we will take another case if there's another case available.
Yeah. So we will meet on the 19th.
Yes.
Whether it's a joint hearing with the council or just regular public hearings will be determined.
So that's Thursday, everybody know
Yes,
that down. It's a Thursday. The Wednesdays were already booked with other meetings.
And I don't know how it's going to work, if the council's going to participate via Zoom or if they're going to try to join us here. I mean, we had five councilors, that exceeds the 10 people, so I don't know that we'd be doing that. But so stay tuned on that. We'll see what happens. Is that it, Michelle? Do you have anything else?
19th, yep.
December 9th is looking like the December meeting. That will be the second Wednesday, I believe, is December 9th. So if you're planning your calendar. But with that said, is there a motion to adjourn? Diane, is there a second? Risa Gray, seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Ron and Paul, thank you very much for the technical help tonight.